your patience.
No,
Okay.
no problem.
I'm going to hit the button, start.
Okay. All right. Good morning, everyone. My name is Steven Silva Brave. I am a citizen of the Lakota Nation. I am a PhD student at the University of Texas at Arlington, and I'm a product of Texas Public Schools, the father of children and nephews in Texas Public Schools. And I'm here to talk about the American Indian Native Studies course. That course is more than a history class. It gives students the tools to look at things from new perspectives and to become more well-rounded citizens. In the course survey, it showed that 100% of students said they learned something in this course that they didn't know before. That's not just a stat, that's a spark. In many indigenous belief systems, the circle is seen as sacred and everyone has a place in it, and no one should be left out. This course brings Native voices into Texas education for the first time. And so when that circle is whole, everyone learns and lives better. The course is the only one that truly brings indigenous voices straight from the source. But of course, it's valuable to all students. Last year, after my son's band concert in Grand Prairie, a teenager came up to me and said, "Did you help make that Ames course?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "That is my favorite course. It's the only class I'm excited to come to school for." So a 16-year-old boy getting excited to come to school for a class, that kind of class is worth protecting. So renewing this course is one way to prove how much we value our children and what they value. So why would we even consider sunsetting something that causes students to shine so brightly? So I ask that you all please vote to renew the American Indian Native Studies course. Our children are watching. Thank you.
Oh, you might be getting it upside down. Flip to the testimony side, if you will. Hello, I am Lynette Oweto. I'm the Social Studies Coordinator for Grand Prairie ISD. Thank you, Chairman Young and the rest of the committee for this opportunity. I would like to urge the Committee on Instruction in renewing the innovative course Ethnic Studies, American Indian Native Studies, and bringing it into Tex eventually. This course was written by American Indian Native community members, parents, educators, and college, university professors. It has been vetted through TEA 3 times, through a work group e-draft for Tex in 2022, and as an innovative course twice for initial approval and also now for renewal. We are in our 4th year currently of offering this beneficial course that expands students' elective choices. We have a varied student population in Grand Prairie, with 67% of our students being Hispanic and under 1% American Indian. 49% of Texas students are Hispanic, and many of them have Native roots. And this course provides new knowledge and perspectives for them as well as all Texas students. This course also helps foster a sense of belonging, enhancing our Native American students' high school experience. Districts feel more confident about offering courses with SBOE approval and investing the time in the course if they believe that it is here to stay. Approval and posting of our first innovative course did not occur till late June, early July, which was too late for districts to offer it in the first year. We do our course selection guides in October and our scheduling of high school for the following year in January. Because then with the second year of approval, it was kind of like late because that districts knew there was only 1 year left on the approval. So with the renewal being 5 years, I think it gives the course more of a chance for districts to adopt it. Having Tex would even help more. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Bob Whistler, and I'm a member and legislator of the Citizen Potawatomi Nation in Oklahoma. We're 40,000 strong in the nation. I was a member of the TEA Group E to initially create an AINS course to meet the State Board of Education standards. Since then, I have testified 4 or 5 times to the board to move this innovative elective class to their board meeting agenda for a first reading. Thus far, the course has simply remained in an innovative status. However, it is being used by a number of schools in Grapevine. I've heard that both the teachers and students have been amazed at learning the history of our country that truly covers the Native American and European settler interaction, challenges, and resolutions. Our group has been working with TEA since we first began with Group E to make any changes that they advise the State Board of Education questions. We're very appreciative of this relationship. I'm here today to ask that this committee approves and recommends that the State Board of Education renew the innovative status of this course. That will enable our teachers to continue offering this specific history area in our state of Texas and U.S. history to our students. Through the use of innovative teaching techniques and programs, it helps each student reach their potential. In summary, please vote to have this innovative American Indian Native Studies course renewed by the State Board of Education. Thank you. I might add that, by the way, we had 5 years for this program. COVID-19 did delay it to a bit in the very beginning, so we really didn't take advantage of the full 5 years. With this extension, it would give us the 5 years to work on the program. Thank you very much.
I'm Ken Romer, Emeritus UT System Academy of Distinguished Teachers, with 50 years of experience writing and teaching about working with and working for Native Americans. Today, I focus on 3 key points on the course introduction that you have right in front of you. Native perspectives. Everything is connected among people, kinship, tribe, and non-natives, but also in nature. A tree is a complex system of soil, water, sun, symbiosis with plants and animals, family history, and storytelling. The human interconnectedness is relevant to healing a divided USA. The connections in nature deepen students' understanding of current interdisciplinary trends in science and engineering. Sovereignty. We teach history accurately. Legal precedents for this concept come from Chief Justice Marshall's 19th century rulings, the 1934 Reorganization Act, and President Nixon's self-determination speech. Sovereignty does not mean consistently opposing non-tribal laws. It means self-determination and working in conjunction with state and federal institutions as a respected partner. The history section introduces these precedents and relationships to students. Past events affect the present. We strive for balance. The impacts of disease, military operations, and boarding schools cannot be ignored. But the record of resilience offers inspirational models. Examples include a flowering of Native literature, Pulitzer Prizes for N. Scott Mamadi, Natalie Diaz, and Louise Erdrich, and STEM achievements celebrated in the national magazine Winds of Change. The documents the contributions, especially by students and young researchers. Native and non-Native students will be inspired by the examples of American resilience. And these are the...
Thank you.
Thank you.
Any specific questions just for you? So on the course application, the grades are for high school 10 through 12th grade, and some freshmen took the course. Moving forward, because your numbers will grow, will that be a conflict anymore?
Well, we still recommend 10 to 12 just to have that maturity level of the student. But I mean, I'm not opposed when they offer it to freshmen, but just like, it depends on the maturity of that freshman. I would say that was more of a case-by-case basis. We have had some freshmen in the class. It just depends on their maturity level. So generally, 10 to 12 would be recommended.
Okay, so maybe we state that as, because I agree with the maturity level of that. Okay, and I just wanted to make a statement, but I was thinking I'll use it before we vote, if that's okay, because I had more information. Okay, so I don't know, some of my takeaways, I think for Grand Prairie, since you all are using it so much, is I would like to see more of kind of like an exhaustive list of your primary and secondary sources being used. I was able just to see a few of the textbooks that you use, but I know that it's heavily written around offering students primary and secondary sources, which is crucial. But on your list of materials, I just didn't see a substantial amount to go along with the TEKS. The TEKS are rich, by the way. I think
Okay,
the TEKS
thank
are
you.
really rich. I have a couple things that I would recommend a little differently, but I mean, you're really going deeply into the history to Dr. Bob's mentioning. I love the way that you include the state and federal government in working together. I also like the way that you look at the rich history of the the American Native Indians, both past and present. You did a good job with that. I also like the way that you really highlighted the contributions of American Indians and Natives. I thought you did a really good job, and I just wanted people to know that I did take time looking at these TEKS, and I think you did an excellent job of really immersing students into the history, the culture, and just even bringing in government, the laws, the statutory laws, and that govern and how they govern differently to the different groups. You know, I like how you took you broke apart the historical part and then the general cultural part of that. And I think there'll be good dialogue in classes. I could see that. I did look at the students' responses, and they all learned something new. I think anytime we take a course where we're learning about a different culture and the contributions to the American fabric story, it's really uplifting to all citizens, and I think all of our students benefit from that. I think one of my last takeaways from this is I noticed the numbers weren't as great as I would love to see those numbers. So, which is the purpose for the way that I will vote on this issue today. And that being, what you have is, I think students will look at the title, and then only a certain number of students who are interested will go. But I think the interest would draw more interest from high schoolers or students if we had like a multi-ethnic culture studies course where we not only isolated these, we didn't isolate, but we brought them all together, the ethnic cloud courses together in harmony, if that makes sense. Because students would see themselves in the fabric of history collectively together, and would be able to support and understand how we all interwove together in the American fabric. So that would be my only takeaway. But good TEKS, with the exception of some few things that I think could be changed. But I just want to let you know that I really do enjoy the course TEKS that I see here. I think it was a well done job. I'd like to see more primary and secondary sources because there's a lot of blank spaces with the rich depthness of the TEKS. And also, and just, you know, I don't know, I'm just putting this out there because I know more people are watching, maybe just the idea of integrating our ethnic courses together as opposed to isolating them more.
Can I respond?
Yes.
Okay, so I think also within the standards, there are opportunities to pull in some of those documents that are listed within the standards. Did y'all get a chance to look at the ABC Clio database that I listed on the resources? That's another place where there are sources, primary and secondary sources in there. And that's also on the application, and I gave you our Grand Prairie access. So I hope that's not shared out with everybody, but with y'all, it's meant for you guys to be able to look at that. So, and as far as ethnic studies courses, we already have a Mexican American Studies course, an African American Studies course. In 2018, there was a call to add 4 courses, and Native American or Native Studies was one of those. So we were just trying to fill that gap. We do have a year's worth of content in our course, you know, easily. So to have a combined course, you would be basically cutting the course in a quarter maybe if you're combining all. Of course, a good U.S. history course would have all of it, but our U.S. history course right now is more than high school U.S. history teachers can teach in a year. It has so many standards that I feel like we really need these electives as an enrichment to those. But thank you for your comments,
Very good point, I think.
and I love your praise, so thank you for that.
To the general student population. It's it was said that this is something that is that might be appealing to, for example, the Latino population in your school district because of the self-identification of some Latinos as definitely part of the Native community as well. Do you see that in the enrollment in this class, that it's not homogeneous, it's really broad-based?
Yes, it is. We are a district that's 67% Hispanic, so in less than 1% identifying as American Indian. So our course does reflect that in enrollment. So, and we have 2 sections of it at one high school and 1 section at another high school.
Great. I'm happy to see that. I also want to comment on the numbers of enrollment. I think I agree with the fact that that unless there's full support for something like this, school districts, and a school district employee myself can be a little hesitant. We have very scarce resources, not just in funding, but also in time and staff. So moving forward with something that may or may not get the full state support may prove difficult for a school district to fully support. So a vote like this is important. And I also know that courses like these may face quote-unquote competition with other courses that are required by the state for graduation. So having the full support of the state behind a course like this one does give it a certain amount of gravitas and importance. So thanks for the work you're doing, and thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Yes, I first have to say that I am very much in favor of this course. I took my first Native American literature course when I went to school at Indiana University, and that was back in the 1980s. And my first thought was, why weren't we taught any of this in high school? And now, many decades later, I'm here in Texas thinking, why aren't we teaching this in high school? So I would like to commend your persistence in working on this, and I know how much resistance there is. When I look at the statistic, there's 0.44% identify as American Indian. Would you like to comment? I'm curious about the possibility that there are hundreds, thousands, millions of people who don't understand that they do have Native American ancestry. Right.
Well, and when you look at that 0.44%, those are the ones that are enrolled in an American Indian, culture on enrollment. So there's more that identify as having indigenous roots or American Indian. They're just not enrolled in a tribe. So those are just statistics in our district. So, and that's true for Texas too. There's more people, we have the 4th largest by numbers population of American Indian people that identify on a census as being American Indian alone. But we also have people who identify as 2 or more, or like our Hispanic students who know, well, I know I have indigenous roots. I may or may not know with what nation. Mm-hmm. So actually the numbers would be larger.
They would be much larger.
Yes.
And I also want to know, the first thing that we read was Cabeza de Vaca's account.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that should be in the curriculum for every high school student. Mm-hmm. So that everyone knows a little bit more about the history of our nation. It's hard to dig it up, but there you have an account of someone who
right,
became
firsthand.
became
Primary
part of-
sources
yes,
are his
primary
journal,
sources.
right? And just so you know, we teach it in 7th grade too, Cabeza de Vaca. So.
Okay, well,
Yeah.
that is wonderful.
We have two people who want to help answer some
Yes, all right.
So to three quick things, to different questions that were asked. So one, for example, the student that I mentioned that came up to me and talked about how much he loved the course, he was not he was a white student, and it was his favorite course, and he talked about how much he learned, changed the different way he thought about writing and stuff like that. Another thing is Dallas ISD is interested in having the course, but they see so much back and forth of, is it going to go forward? Is it going to lose its status? Is the TEKS ever going to get approved? It makes them hesitant, and I could assume that that happens to a lot of other districts. It's just that I know friends in Dallas that, like, we want it, we're just waiting to see what's going on. So I would assume that would happen in other places. And then the third point, I don't know if people fully understand, Lynette was getting to this, but for example, like my sons, we're enrolled in a tribe, right? I have a card in my pocket that says, and we're the only group in the United States that has something like that. So when they're counting that low 0.04, it's students that are actually enrolled in a tribe. There's a process you have to go through, and there's all of that. My nephews, right? They're my sister's kids, same nephews. They haven't enrolled in the tribe yet. They're high school students. They haven't. My sister has her reasons. So they're Native American. They're American Indian. If they take the course, they don't count towards those numbers. So you have a lot like that in Texas, right? But the whole idea of the course is that it's not just for Native students. It's for any student to learn that perspective, and it's not just a history course either. It, like the young man said, it changed. There was something that was said in the course that changed the way that he learned how to write in general. So just some additional thoughts to add on.
I guess three things. One, in terms of mixing together with other groups, some of the TEKS specifically, or even the early ones about the trade routes, a lot of cultures. And then before and after the Civil Wars, there are many opportunities for African American viewpoints to come in. So for Mexican American and African American, not as many Asian American to come in, but those other two groups are there. In terms of numbers, 300,000 identified as Native, 700 to 800,000 identify as having part. We're talking over 1 million people. I know from teaching there are many students who like to identify. I had one student who came in one time, he was about 6'6", had a feather in the back and walked in front of me, and another Vietnam nurse who sat right in front of me with a choker collar and stared at me. Okay, white man, what are you gonna do? And they both became really good friends, but there are many other students who could even be enrolled, but they don't identify, because sometimes if they do identify, the rest of the class thinks, oh, she knows everything about Navajos, let's ask her. And that's really unfair. In terms of numbers, and then the third thing about applying to students who are non-native, look at the variety of population in Texas. If you're going to go into any sort of being a lawyer, a businessman, or woman, you're going to have to deal with other cultures, including this native population, which in the Dallas-Fort Worth area is really large. So just in terms of neighbors, just in terms of relating. So I agree with Stephen. I'm not surprised that it was a non-native student that came up to him and said, this really ignited me. So obviously I'm prejudiced about the course, but I think there are all those advantages.
And I think Dr. Reimer was quoting the latest census as far as Texas numbers when he was talking
Texas.
about.
Right. It's over 9 million nationally, if
Well,
you combine both.
I just like to comment, I'm Anglo ancestry, In college, I took 4 courses. One was in history, one was in film, and one was in literature, and one was in honors that focused on Native American art, history. And yeah, it was at Indiana University, and there were a lot of people who were intensely interested in those topics at that time. And I just think Texas needs to do a little catching up on what's happening.
You all are correct. There's a lot of communities, there's a lot of people in my community that have a lot of Native Indian in us, Native Indian innocent, Black Victor, out of Canada. I'm not registered as a tribal nation, but my family, we know the history and the stories were passed down. So that is true, and it is rich for other students to learn, and it really does. It is a growing process when we can learn from each other and learn from different cultures. So again, the teachings are rich and very applicable and truthful to the history of America, and in my opinion, and not really sure about the 9th graders in this course, however, I think, but that's my point of view. But thank you for your time today.
With what we've been discussing, growing up, I was told that I had Native heritage. I was tested, I do not. But I'm still here today, and I still think this is an important and valuable issue. My name is Amy Longfield. My 2 children are currently in their public school classrooms in Belton, north of here, taking their STAR tests. I know they're doing their best, and I promised them that I would do my best speaking with you here today. As a former high school teacher who was always interested in learning about new curriculum offerings that broaden understanding, I was disheartened to hear of a delay in the adoption process for a course in American Indian and Native Studies. Native leaders and educators have put many hours into creating this robust course, and which has already been taught successfully as an innovative course and shows great promise for expansion to more schools. This course gives a voice to a vibrant part of our population, and it should be renewed. During my years working in college admission here in Texas, I participated in college outreach with Native American students. Our discussions of the college admission process included an education for me as well, as I learned about students' distinct cultural heritage and the ways their history informed their present lives. As an educator and now as a parent, I have sought to learn more about Native American experiences in this country. My own kids are taught history that often focuses on the lives of European settlers. This speaks to my kids' heritage, but they have curiosity about the context of their lives. As my children grow, their minds will mature. They will benefit from hearing other perspectives. Mutual learning is necessary for us all, and it is important, especially important, in the transition from teenager to young adult. Curiosity, engagement, and collaboration benefit students who are ready for higher level thinking in the classroom in preparation for higher education and beyond. I believe the 10th through 12th grade is an appropriate time for them to have the opportunity to take this course, and I request your help in making this possible. Do not put this off any longer, renew it today, and thank you for your time.
My name is Samprathana Akila Kundara, and I'm representing Asian Texans for Justice, a nonprofit dedicated to connecting Asian American and Pacific Islander Texans to civic action. Asian Texans for Justice is spearheading the Asian American Studies pilot course with our community partners. I'm here today as an ally to the folks working on the American Indian and Native Studies innovative course, and I urge the State Board of Education to renew this innovative course. As an ethnic studies graduate, I could tell you from firsthand experience how ethnic studies transformed my education. Ethnic studies taught me empathy and pride for my community, and ultimately drove my civic responsibility to be a good neighbor. Now imagine that if we granted that opportunity to all Texas students. We would have a generation of young people who see themselves reflected in history and are ready to lead with compassion. Every student deserves an education where their backgrounds and experiences are celebrated and accurately represented. As Texans, we are lucky to have a rich and diverse state. However, our curriculum does not always embrace this diversity. Through the American Indian and Native Studies course, students can learn about the people who are here for thousands of years before us and who are still here today. This course is the result of collaboration with the Native nations themselves, a true labor of love and a reflection of community-led scholarship. In every way, it embodies what it means to be Texan, rooted in community, shaped by diverse voices, and a commitment to our history. I was here 3 years ago when this board decided to postpone the social studies revisions in 2020, social studies revisions to 2025. I was actually a student then. And since then, I've witnessed repeated delays in the renewing of this course. Each delay sends a message, intended or not, that Indigenous histories, and by extension, Indigenous students are not a priority.
That's your time.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry. Okay. So thank you for holding this vote today and meeting and including Native Studies. My name is Orlando Lara. I'm a parent my child is at Fox Elementary in Spring right now. And what I handed out is a fact sheet. I have some additional data. But before I get to it, I do want to address the question of why these individual courses. And I just want to point out, I think in 2018, with the State Board of Ed called for these courses, they did so with the wisdom of only these 4 courses. First of all, it's only these 4. And this also makes us different from California. California has a comprehensive ethnic studies course, and that does have the problem of what do we include, what do we not include. It ends up being too overwieldy, and I don't think it's a great model that we should emulate in Texas. But the other point is that as a college student, I actually had, and the reason I'm so committed to this, I'm Chicano Mexican American. I had the opportunity to live in a Native American themed dorm. So I was able, for a whole year, I was able to live with Native students, went to the powwow, and it's so different when you really get to immerse yourself in a community from just getting a small bite. And I think that's the beauty of the way we're doing it in Texas. And I think that's, it allows us to then draw from those courses to feed the other ones. But in terms of districts, there's 7 districts that are currently expressed interest. 2 have already adopted it, and 5 that are just waiting for the yes. And I think we can easily get to 20 in the next 5 years or more. 2,300 people have signed a petition. 80 to 85% say they want the course in their districts. 520 people have sent emails. They've all said, I wish I had, not all, but a lot, have said, I wish I had the opportunity to take this course in high school. They're all asking for it in high school. So just last thing, it's been approved. Suitability, the suitability rubric has been applied. And remember, this is a local course. So if there is desire to make additional amendments, the best course of action is bring it to first reading, second reading. That's the best place to have time for public comment and everything. For this, we just need to renew it so that it can keep going forward and doesn't get expired for next year, which would be very devastating. Thank you.
If there's any reason that Texas just didn't have as many Indian or Native American population as Indiana. Because Indiana already has it in their public schools.
Okay, I don't know what the population is in Indiana.
I mean,
It's higher here in Texas for natives.
yeah. And I don't know the statistics on that, but I certainly had the impression that there were plenty of Native American tribal groups in Texas.
Yes.
And I don't know the numbers, but I don't think that there were somehow mysteriously more in Indiana than in.
No, I mean, we have people from all different nations that, especially with our close proximity to Oklahoma, that have moved into the Dallas-Fort Worth area, but also we were part of the the relocation program of the 1950s and 60s.
Yes.
And so that's how Stephen's grandmother and his family came to be, as just one example, into Dallas-Fort Worth area. But we also have, you know, South Texas, we have so many people who identify perhaps as Mexican American, but they're also indigenous, like they have indigenous roots. And many of our Mexican American populations, they are a mix of European and indigenous. Mm-hmm. So we have all kinds of indigenous people in Texas.
Keep in mind, there's 574 federally recognized tribes, in addition to the state tribes. Each one of them, because of their sovereignty, has a decision on who's going to be a member and who isn't. Right. Certain ones are delegated by ancestry, like mine. That's why we're 40,000 strong. Others have quantum, and they'll have, some of them have very limited quantum. Some require as much as half in order to be a member of the nation. Others require an eighth and so forth. But because of that, a lot of them, there are a lot of Native Americans they're native, but they're not registered because their tribe simply will not allow them to. We also have some instances where someone is a tribal member in theory, but they have a limit on the number of people they want in their nation. So they wait until someone passes away, and they now have an opening, and that person can move up. That happens to be done with one of the nations up in Michigan that's associated with us. So it's much larger than a lot of people realize. I do know that from the information I've received, in the Dallas-Fort Worth area alone, there's over 170,000 indigenous people.
And something like 80 tribes.
And see, all of this stuff we're learning in this meeting is taught in the class. Kids come away going, oh, I already know, I know there's 574 tribes. Oh, I know the difference between enrolled and not enrolled. Oh, in Texas, the relocation program is huge because not just my family, I would say for sure more than half of the families that end up in an area like Dallas or Houston or something like that is because of relocation programs, and it's not the relocation that happened in the 1800s that we learn about in history. This is something in the 1950s where they're getting people off of their home reservations, trying to get them to move into urban areas. And that's, so people will go, well, what tribe is in Dallas? None. What tribe is nearby? Not really any. Why are there so many natives here? It's the relocation program. But students would learn about stuff like that, like, oh, okay, that's why they're so spread out and things. So it's just cool for students to have an opportunity to learn stuff that early on that even like the general public doesn't even know, as adults.
But the general public should know it.
Right.
And when I came to Texas and met one of a graduate student friends, and I said, I mentioned Native American populations, and he said, well, there really weren't many here. And I said, no, that's not true. So many people have a misconception of that somehow this land was just empty, and white people just kind of came in and populated it with a few help from a few Hispanic
The answer is yes, or no. We should be. There's no good reason for Idaho Texas should be leading. We have the fourth largest Native population.
Yes.
And
Any other questions for the testifiers?
Yes, ma'am. So this item is on Roman numeral 2-25 of your board agenda. The item presents 7 innovative courses that will expire at the end of the 2024-2025 school year and that have been submitted for renewal by their sponsoring school district organization. Before you begin deliberation on this item, we want to surface a problem with regard to staff level review of the course materials. When innovative courses are submitted by districts or organizations on behalf of districts, historically they've included both the recommended student expectations for the course and suggested course materials. Additionally, historically, while staff may provide feedback to districts who have submitted courses, staff has not gone through a process to fully evaluate the submitted student expectations or suggested course materials. This means that staff has historically submitted items without detailed review for efficacy or statutory compliance. This can present problems if components of courses conflict with statutory requirements. As a result, we think that before the board gives consideration to any of these innovative courses, staff should conduct a more detailed review of the submissions to ensure consistency with your adopted suitability rubric and broader statutory compliance. That hasn't been done at this time, and so we cannot provide an assurance to the board that these courses and their related materials meet the board's suitability rubric or comply with broader statutory mandates. Therefore, TEA respectfully requests time to research and report its findings to members of this committee, and also ensure that all of the submitted innovative course materials have been provided to the full board. Specifically, we request that you do not take any action on this item today.
Hearing your request, I will accept that we take no action on this. However, I just want you to reiterate again some of the information it is that you'd be researching for us, and to clarify, does that not only come to this board, but this committee, but also to the larger committee as well?
So the any action item, as you know, goes to the full board for a final vote on a Friday when it is being considered. So we would conduct a more thorough review of all of the submitted materials, and then we'll put those findings back to all the members of the board.
And that is that. And the review is to ensure that there's statutory compliance as well as
compliance with your suitability.
Compliance and suitability. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
By delaying this to our June meeting, would that still enable the American Native course to be implemented in the fall?
Yes, ma'am. If you take action in June, then there would be opportunity for all of the courses that have been submitted for renewal to be in effect for the 25-26 school year.
This is 7 innovative courses for this particular item.
That's correct.
I have a question. I've been on the SBOE and the committee since January. Since then, I've been hearing from community members regarding this board. And apparently, this has been an issue even before I came on board. Why is there a delay in creating these studies so that we could have made a decision today? Why didn't the TEA sort of, think that it's important enough for us to have to make a decision today in order for school districts to be able to adopt and plan accordingly? It seems to me that this may be like planning or reluctance in bringing this forward. I'm concerned about that.
So I will take responsibility for that. This is work that my staff does. And I think one of the things that has changed, and we are trying to make sure that we're providing you with full and complete information. So the suitability rubric, for example, is something that is new, and I think we're still learning when, where, and how that should be applied. There are instructional materials that are being recommended in alignment with all of these courses that have been submitted. And I cannot sit here today and tell you that we have done the level of review that I believe members of the board would expect in order for us to be able to provide you any assurance. One of the steps that we implemented recently was to require that every applicant submit materials to us. That is not something that used to happen. What we did not do is take a look at all of those materials ourselves to be able to give you any sort of detailed information on that, and for that I apologize.
I know there's been course applications, course creators meeting, and it's been a process that's been outstanding and a process that's been present. Is there any concern from your office that the requirements for sustainability are not being met, given the input that scholars, we've had some here today, give the input that the community have provided?
And we just don't know. We have not thoroughly reviewed those materials. So if you were to ask me today, what is in, and this is for any of the courses that were submitted, I cannot tell you with any level of detail that everything is in fact in compliance with all current statutory requirements as well as information and suitability.
Could we tentatively approve these courses contingent on the results from the suitability study or whatever else it is that you need to do?
I think that's the will of the committee.
I've accepted the withdrawal of that. I do feel that it is important that this comes to us with the suitability rubric in mind.
I do too, but I was wondering if we
I
could
know
do
that.
contingents on that.
That it meets the contingency of that.
No, that we approve it contingent on a favorable suitability report. If the suitability report comes back and it's not good, then it's not approved.
The question would then be, would the submitter of that, because I know we're looking at 7 different ones for this, would they have the opportunity to make any corrections prior to that, the next posting of this item? Or is it's one and done? Like what they submitted, that's it? Or do you make corrections on it to meet the requirements of the suitability rubric?
Are you asking in I'm sorry, I'm not sure.
Internally. Like, so if you're, because Pam wants to know if we can accept it or consider it on contingency. My question is that is it if they are non-compliant, any one of these courses are non-compliant to the suitability rubric, is it then just done and it's rejected, or does the person, the people whoever submitted have the opportunity to make those corrections so it meets the compliance with the suitability rubric? And how do we know the difference? Because right now we don't have a policy like we have with publishers, where we have what comes to our committee is like, here's what was originally published, here's the change in that, and we get those side by side, right? Just like what we talked about earlier, we click on it, and then we're able to talk about what we like and what we dislike about those choices. Right now, we don't have anything like that set up, and so now we're talking about comparing it to the suitability rubric as well. And so the question is, would additional edits be allowed to be made, or if it comes to the point where it's not, doesn't meet the suitability rubric, then it's just rejected completely?
So I don't believe we have any rules that outline all of that. This is, as you know, we have made adjustments to the process in a number of areas over the last 2 years, I think. So I think that the committee would need to determine what would be your expectation for approval. We have in the past given applicants opportunities to update, to make changes prior to approval. This is an annual process. We bring items to the board at multiple meetings. So I think depending on what set of expectations you would want to set, I don't think there's anything in your rule that dictates that. I think the question would be, you know, like what is it that you would want for us to provide, and then, you know,
So one of my previous concerns has been, and not in particular to any one of these that are before us today, but just in general of the innovative courses, like what's the purpose of an innovative course, where does it come from, and then where do those courses, as they live here, where do they live later on in you know, state requirements or state credits. But beyond that, if there are any changes, we're not provided that information directly. Is that correct? Like we don't.
We would not make, there would not be any changes made after you approve a course. So once you approve it, then that is like, we don't touch it.
So in the renewal process, are we renewing exactly what was submitted the first time they were approved, or and this is just a general question, or the resubmission, does it allow for additional changes, and then we're approving a course based on that resubmission, but we're not informed of what those changes are from the original to the resubmission?
Well, so I think this is another process improvement, and we can certainly provide you with a side-by-side. I think we provide you with all of the information in the renewal. Is it true that applicants will update and engage in continuous improvement? Absolutely, I think that's true. I don't think it occurred, honestly, I don't think it occurred to us to provide a delineated, these are the things that have changed, because everybody has access to both versions. We provide you with the complete set of information. We did not take that additional step of saying these are the specific things that changed, but we can absolutely do that moving forward.
I think that would be very helpful. I think that we utilize that process, and we appreciate that process for like the publishing materials that come before us as well. And so that would be hugely helpful to bring those items to our attention, but also that third item where it is the suitability rubric, because laws and rules and all things change, sometimes from a first renewal to or a first approval to a second renewal, and that a lot changes in 5 years. And so we will also be applying the suitability rubric to all courses moving forward under the innovative courses as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
I really am a little unclear on the process. So an innovative course automatically has 5 years to live. Is that the deal?
Not anymore.
Not anymore.
So in the past, when we would bring an innovative course to you, we would ask you, the committee, how long you wanted to do an initial approval and how long you wanted to do a renewal. And when your last set of rules, when you adopted your last set of rule amendments on Roman numeral 2-27, you added to your rule that newly approved courses shall be approved for a period of 3 years, and courses approved for renewal shall be approved for a period of 5 years. So you have now indicated in your rule that that is the amount of time that a course would be approved or that a renewal would be.
How was that on this committee?
When we updated our rules, were you with us then?
No, I've never been.
All right. Any other questions?
Well, what would staff advise that we do to not kill the hopes and dreams of the people who want this course to continue to live?
There is still one more meeting for you to be able to take action prior to the start of the school year. We respectfully request that you give us an opportunity to do the additional research.
Is there a way, though, to frame our decision on this as not being that we refuse to renew this course? I mean, what's the best way for us to frame our decision? That's not going to be just no, kicking out.
You're not taking action, and that includes you're not taking action to reject. We are asking for additional.
And that additional time is going to be granted. There's always the opportunity to have a special committee meeting, a special call meeting, of which I'm more than happy to request of the chair if we would like to do that, to see this before the June meeting. But that,
A point of
that would
clarification.
be, yes, sir.
Is there an opportunity for this committee to approve this list of courses today with the understanding that the agency will review for sustainability, and that any course that does not meet the sustainability will then be reconsidered at our next meeting in June.
That's what they're going to do between now and then.
Well, not quite. I'm asking for an approval today.
Your DEA has requested
I understand that.
that, and I'm giving them that opportunity because it's not just one course, it's all 7 of them moving forward.
I understand that. I'm asking if there's an opportunity to still vote on it today, or is your decision?
I know this isn't official or anything, but just can I request that you prioritize the American Native course, and that perhaps we could get a special meeting? I just think that we've seen how important this is to the community, and if you could prioritize that, I just don't want that one to drop through the cracks again because lack of staff or whatever to get all 7 of them reviewed. So that would be my request.
I second that motion.
So,
Well, it's not a motion.
I know, I said
It's not a motion.
Oh, okay, all right, okay.
it's not a motion, but I have said it publicly that I will request of the chair, of the board chair, Kenzie, that we hold a special meeting to address this. And Member Little, you're asking specifically for this particular course, correct?
Yes.
And I would like to reiterate that I made a joke. I second that emotion. I've articulated that. I know it was not a motion. It was
Thank you, Dr. Bellmetter. I appreciate your support.
inject a little humor into the proceeding.
Okay. At this time, that concludes the last item on our agenda. And so this ends our meeting.